Search has changed. For years, practice owners thought the goal was simple: show up on Google, rank high, get the click. But today, patients are searching differently. They're asking Google more complex questions. They're seeing AI overviews. They're using ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity to compare options, understand treatments, and decide which practice feels trustworthy before they ever make that call. We're discussing how search has evolved, what practice owners are getting wrong, whether Google is still king, how reviews now affect AI visibility, and where AI can help beyond search. This episode is brought to you by Ekwa Marketing. With that being said, Naren, welcome to the show.
Hey, Don, so glad to be here. And I really think the topic we are covering is a very important topic. And it's a timely topic: do's and don'ts in the age of AI search. The reason I believe this is a great topic is, I do see a lot of practice owners not doing the right thing, and more importantly, doing things that actually hurt them. And we all use common sense, and we think, what our common sense is correct. And usually our common sense comes from, similar experiences in other areas and so forth. But the gods of AI search don't agree with us. So a lot of times what we think is a good idea, like for example, using AI to write content, you get punished. So we're going to unpack a lot of those do's and don'ts. Take some notes. Hopefully you will, do something about it, because if you are not going to do the things that you need to do and stop doing the things you shouldn't be doing, your prospects may not be as good as it could be. So hopefully you get some benefit from this podcast. Let's dive right in, Don.
Amazing. So, Naren, let's start with the big picture. Search used to mean someone typed a few words into Google and clicked a website. Now we have Google AI overviews, AI mode, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, a new AI just popping up every single day. So, what has actually changed in how patients search for and, most importantly, choose an aesthetic practice?
Great question. So you're literally asking me, if I were to summarize it, how has search changed in the age of AI? I think that's a great
That's
place to
right.
start. The biggest changes is that search has become more conversational and more decision oriented. Patients are no longer just typing in med spa near me, Botox clinic, zip code, etc. They're asking questions like, who is the best med spa for natural looking results near me? What should I look for before choosing a provider for fillers? That matters because a 2026 study found Google AI overviews appeared on 13.7% of queries overall, but on 64.7% of question form queries. So total search Google, I think, is around 500 billion. I'm just rounding it. Now, out of 500 billion people using Google every month, 13% of them, that means 65 billion of them every month, are asking these kind of questions. So that's a big number, right? 65 billion people asking these types of questions. So you want to make sure that you are changing as the users are changing. You are not only like ranking on Google Maps, ranking on near me or zip code, etc., but you're also ranking for these conversational questions. So the more patients search in question form, the more likely they are to meet AI generated answers before they see a traditional website result. So what do you need to do? You have to make sure you are also showing up in the AI answers, and then you are provided as one of the top one or two or three links that AI is using to generate that answers. And this is something we pay a lot of attention to. So one of the things I'm sure a lot of people are thinking is, how big is Google? I know I'm going to get to that later on in one of my other questions, but why don't I just give you some high level overview? Google still is king. It controls, if you look at search and you add AI search to it, it controls literally 98% of the search market. Let me repeat, 98% of the search market still has a Google answer associated with it. So the question is, how do you make sure that whether it's AI overview, which is something that's built into Google, or AI mode, which is also built into Google, plus what we all know as Google search, Google Maps, Google SEO, They're all, I think some people call Google SEO traditional search. All those four things, AI overview, AI mode, maps, and maps and traditional search, they all are supporting you as patients go through this buying journey. So you are the one they are picking. The shift is from simply ranking for keywords to being understood as a credible answer. Google has said AI overviews are used by more than 2 billion people every single day. And AI mode can handle complex multi-part questions using what Google calls query fan out. So pretty much you can ask follow-up questions and so forth in AI mode. And Google calls it query fan out. So I guess you're fanning out the questions and you're going deeper and deeper, where it runs multiple related searches across subtopics. So for example, you ask a question like, who is the best aesthetic practice for me? It goes and looks at Botox. It goes and looks at different things that an aesthetic practice might do simultaneously. So it's opening up. I mean, I'm sure we all know the word agents, parallel agents, to go and do this comprehensive research. Now that happens only in AI mode. So for a practice, that means your website, your Google business profile, your service pages, your reviews, your local signals, like when was the last time somebody used Google Maps to, get to your location? They all need to be clear and consistent. Imagine nobody's using your Google Maps to find you. You know what? That is a problem. Google thinks something is wrong here. So what do you do in this world? You have to make sure that you're paying attention to all of this. I know it's not easy, but if you do it right, you will have an unfair advantage. We noticed many of our clients saw their traffic from Google literally double. Why? Because now there's a lot more richness. The ones who were just ranking for 100 different things, now they're ranking for 300 different things. So I think for those who know how to play the game right, this is a gold rush. This is an awesome opportunity to really, really even further strengthen your position in the marketplace.
Now, that is a very nice distinction you made over there of the richness, how things are much more easier to find, but the answers are becoming more unique to your particular need. So let's talk about where practice owners are getting this wrong. So, what are the biggest mistakes practice owners are making right now when it comes to AI search? Where do you see people reacting the wrong way or focusing on the wrong things?
This is a great question. So, what are the common mistakes in AI search? So let me start getting into that. But before I do that, I want to just start by giving you some numbers so you have some perspective. Because without perspective, we might focus on the wrong things, think the wrong way. The first mistake is treating AI search like a shortcut or a trick. Some owners
Mhm.
think there will be one technical hack that gets them recommended on ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, or Google AI. But the data tells a totally different story. For example, Google search, this is what we call traditional search, processed over 417 billion searches in a recent month. 417 billion searches in a month. Keep this in your mind, in the back of your mind. Google Maps was used 100 billion times in that same month. So combined, it's 517 billion. ChatGPT in a month was used, around a billion times. Perplexity around a billion times. So pretty much Google search is, like I said, 98% of the overall volume. Comparing 500 billion to 800 million, a billion, there's literally a 500x difference. So one of the mistakes I think people make is they forget the platform that's still used by 98% of the people, that is Google, and instead kind of think only about ChatGPT or Gemini, that still has less than 1 or 2% of the market share. So I do think you really, 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 really need to focus on Google. The other thing I want to mention is if you do Google right, automatically you're going to do ChatGPT right. Like many of our clients are ranking for 40 plus keywords on ChatGPT or 40 plus searches on ChatGPT, different types of things people are looking for. Similarly, they're ranking for 100 plus on Google. So if you do Google right, you're going to do the other platforms right. Why? Google is looking for the right things. So of course, the other platforms, they're trying to emulate Google because remember, Google has 20 years of experience. And by the way, Google has been using AI starting, literally 10 years ago. I remember the speech the CEO of Google gave, I think it was in 2017. And he literally said, we are going to be an AI first company in 2017. So they started incorporating AI into search even in 2018 and so forth. So pretty much everybody else, when it comes to consumer space, is following Google. So whatever Google does in search, everybody else copies it. So just make sure that if you're doing extremely well in Google, you will do extremely well in other platforms. That's the first point. The second point that I want to focus on is creating AI content. I know people think, oh, you know what? I can use AI to write an email. I can use AI to create a document. I can use AI to create a presentation. Why can't I use AI to create content that also ranks on Google? Google knows if everyone can create AI content and rank on Google, that means there's no value for Google anymore. Think about it, right? AI is cheap, right? We're talking cents on the dollar versus a human doing something. So Google doesn't want to become worthless. So they have very clearly said, we will not allow or rank AI generated content. Not only will they not rank you, they will punish you, because in Google's minds, you are trying to cheat Google. You are trying to, Google has always said they want real content from real people, not anything machine generated. So anytime you try to cheat Google, Google takes it as as a no and literally punishes you. You get put in the sandbox. Even the pages that do not have AI content gets penalized. So there's a lot of repercussions when you do that. So that's the second mistake. This is one of the don'ts, right? In other words, it sounds so simple and easy, right? Using AI to write content for Google, don't do it. You will get killed. So don't do it. So always use humans. Make sure you comply with Google standards. Make sure it has no duplicate content where you're copying information or from other people. So all of those basic rules on how to write content that Google loves. Make sure it is long form as much as possible where it's possible, because Google likes long form content. So make sure this is human generated content that meets Google's guidelines. The third mistake I think that is becoming even more prominent is ignoring quality Google reviews. Many of you have Google reviews, but you don't have quality Google reviews. What I mean is a paragraph review where somebody talks about the particular services, and I'll get into that in a bit. So reviews are no longer just star ratings. They are language signals. If patients mentions specific treatments, outcomes, comfort, professionalism, consultation quality, how much they trust you, how you treat them, how you are on time, those reviews help both humans and, more importantly, Google's AI and all the other AI platforms understand your practice and what it's known for, right? Remember, a real human review carries a lot more weight than something that you created. So definitely a 5-star review that says great place is nice, but not detailed enough. So as far as these AI search platforms, whether it's Google or otherwise, are concerned, they don't really help these platforms. So they don't really help you show up. For example, on the other hand, they talk about the services, they talk about the quality of service, and there is like 50, 60 words describing it. That's rich. That's giving AI so many signals about what you're good at and the kind of practice you are and so forth. So that's what you want to go for. It's no longer about number of reviews. It's about the quality of reviews and how many reviews you have, perhaps with 50 plus words. So count that, grow that, every month, try to get 10 or more reviews that have 50 or more words. That should be the gold standard. Of course, you still need to pay attention to AI search and all the other things we talked about, because if you're not showing up, period, these reviews won't help. AI review, reviews, I would say, are out of 6 things. It's the 6th most important thing. It's not the first most important, but it's something you can control, something you can work on. And if you chip away at it, it will make a difference for you.
That point about review and how much richness it truly brings to your practices, visibility is huge, because a lot of owners still see reviews as a reputation box to check. But in the age of AI, they are almost part of that discovery engine. So, as you mentioned earlier on, Google is the undeniable king of search. So let us know, what are the new things practices need to pay attention to so that they show up well on Google and across all these different AI platforms?
Yes, you are correct. Google is the king of search, and Google controls 98% of the market when you compare apples to apples and how many times we use Google versus we use the other platforms. So knowing that, remember, if you take care of Google, there's a 90% likelihood you will do well with ChatGPT, you will do well with Gemini and Perplexity. How do we know this? We have 500 practices and we have seen the numbers. So every quarter, we check how our clients are doing well on these newer search platforms. And we notice they are doing extremely well, as long as they're doing very well on Google as well. So there is a one-to-one correlation. So what is new? So that's a great question. Let's dive right in. Google has said AI mode is designed for complex multi-part questions and follow-ups, and then uses query fan out to search across related subtopics and data sources. So practices need content that answers real patient questions, not just thin pages built around keywords. For example, your service pages could explain who the treatment is for, what concerns it addresses, what the patient should expect, and why your approach is different or better. Another important point is that AI overview do not always pull from the exact same pages a traditional first page ranking would show. This is very, very important. One of the things we noticed is many of our internal pages that might be ranking 10th or 11th on a Google search is now showing up as 1 or 2 or 3 in Google AI overview or AI mode. Why? Because those are the detail oriented pages. So Google is pulling from the inside pages. So this was the bonanza I was talking about. Many of our clients saw double the traffic after Google brought this AI changes, because we had a lot of those foundational pages to support our main pages. But now we are realizing even those, other pages that are supporting the main pages are also coming up in Google AI overview, in Google AI mode, and the traffic from Google has literally doubled in some cases. So for practice owners, the lesson is the traditional SEO still matters, but it's not enough by itself. You need a broader footprint, strong website content, credible reviews. Again, I said, love letter paragraph reviews that are 50 plus words or more, complete local profiles, consistent brand language, and most importantly, patient education that proves your authorities. For example, if you have taken a course at a university recently, highlight it. Google really, really wants experts, and a university is seen more as an expert than, let's say this other person who ran a weekend course. So having courses or education from name brand universities, etc., that we all know of is better than some very good doctor teaching you something. So keep that in the back of your mind as you go ahead and get credentials, and then make sure those credentials are being highlighted and used on your different pages. Again, Google gives you how to do it, how not to do it. So again, follow Google's how to and do it the right way. This is something we pay a lot of attention to, because it's one of the things your continuous education start paying us off.
And beyond search, where should practices use AI? This is another question that we often see in our events, expert panels. What are the practical areas where AI can help without making the practice feel robotic or generic?
This is a great, great, great question. And beyond search, where can we use AI? Right? That's the question. So I do think, I'm being blunt, and I have a lot of friends who happen to be doctors. A lot of times they use AI to write responses, emails. Let's say somebody's upset. They're upset too because they felt the patient did this wrong and that wrong. But they tell the AI in spoken language, hey, create an email like this that doesn't upset the patient, that addresses the issue and makes these 3 points, but in a nice way, right? So you can use AI, and you can even train your AI to, have those kind of common elements, like not make the patient upset, etc. So that way you don't need to repeat yourself. So I really think that's an example of where you can use AI. So do not use AI to create content, but use AI for communication. Now, if you want to go a step further, like people are starting to play around with technology that communicates with patients. Like I was sitting next to a tech person in a telecom company. They used to have 40,000 people answering customer service calls. And he said the problem was the average call would take 10 minutes. So you needed people to answer these calls. Now the average call is taking 1 minute. Why? AI can answer pretty much anything and everything. Why is my bill high last month? I can go and study your bill and tell you why. And, is there a better rate plan? If I'm traveling, to other countries, AI can go and give you all the options right then and there. And it's fast and it's, in the moment. So only time Like he told me that they connect a human is when the client is upset and he wants to cancel. Even then, AI is listening to the customer and giving the answers. So that because do you remember in the old days they will ask to verify and ask same questions like 7 times, and you're like so tired after waiting for 10 minutes to answer the same questions. What's your name? What's your password, etc. Now all of that is done for you, right? And also AI is giving the answers as the customer is speaking. So this person looks like they know what they're talking about. I remember many times, dozens of times, they'll say, oh, let me put you on a brief hold. Let me find out, right? They don't need to find out. They get the answers in a second. It's just that for certain sensitive topics, they're realizing humans are better than, AI, because you don't want to argue with the client about, why, you're not going to give a discount. That's something that has to be done with, by a human, with empathy and, all of that good stuff, right? So the reason I bring that up is, he was telling me like from 40,000 employees, they may one day go to 4,000 employees. Literally 90% of the time, money spent can be cut with the help of AI. So that's a classic example. Communication. I mean, I hear this from doctors all day long. Even taking notes, more and more AI is taking notes. Even writing summary documents. Let's say you want to send a follow-up to a referral, like, writing that letter, AI can be used. Whether it's automated, like I said, in the texting kind of conversation with an existing patient where you're going back and forth, but the smart AI is giving smart answers. And of course, anytime it has doubts, it could flag to a human and say, can you jump in? Or at the very least, it can give the human the answers. The human can read it and then send it just as a cover. So those are examples of where I think you can use AI beautifully. The other place I would use AI is, study data and study numbers. So if you get reports that are very complex, you can ask AI to kind of go through the whole thing and give you trends, give you things that are working well, things that perhaps you may want to look at, right? Because as humans, we are not very good with complexity. And of course, we don't have the attention span in 2026 that we used to have maybe 15 years ago. So those are some examples where you can use AI. But when it comes to AI search, get those credentials and use them. Don't use AI to, write content, have humans write content the way Google loves. Pay attention to your entire website. Make the whole website useful. There is something called CRUX for larger websites. Like many of our clients, especially the ones who've been with us for multiple years, have very large websites. And now those websites are not just coming under Google Lighthouse scores, they're coming under Google CRUX. CR for Chrome, UX for user interface. So there's a tool called CRUX that has something to do with Chrome and how easy it is, to use. So anyways, so use all these technologies. Now I know this is very technical and you probably need webmasters and technical people to help you with this, but it will pay off dividends. So those are some of the tips I would leave you with.
Great point there at the end. This is all very technical in terms of, I mean, for our owners listening in, for our medical directors listening in, of course, they are highly qualified people. So it they have already done a lot in their own lives, in their own journey, in their own pathways. But this might not be the main thing on their things to do. So for the owner listening in who knows AI search matters but feels overwhelmed, where should they start? What is the first practical step to make sure that their practice is ready for this new search environment?
Absolutely. I do think, you want to know how well or poorly you are doing with AI search and, regular search. Of course, still regular search is, 87% of the market. Even Google said 13% is AI now. So you want to do well everywhere. You want to transition to conversational search, like we talked about, not just, doctor near me or practice near me or Botox near me, right? So you want to really make this transition. So I would really focus on, finding out how well or poorly you are doing. Like a good metric is, are you showing up for 100 different types of popular searches or more on Google? Usually when you're showing up for 100 or more searches on Google, that means you are in the top 5%. That means you're going to get 95% of the search traffic, including AI search traffic. So that's a good metric. Now, it's very hard and time consuming to figure this stuff out. So one of the things we recommend is a marketing strategy meeting where we would spend 6 hours studying you, studying your competition, figuring out how well or poorly you are doing when it comes to AI search. And if you're doing really well, we'll tell you why as well. Is it because of CRUX? Is it because of original content? Is it because you are using EEAT, all these qualifications you have the right way? Or it's because you are not doing these things. So you not only get a report card as to are you in the top 5% or you are in the bottom, and then what you need to maintain if you're already in the top 5%, or what you need to change if you are in the bottom. Unfortunately, 95% of the clients, like the stat I shared with you, are in the bottom, meaning they don't get any free traffic or hardly any or very little free traffic, which means they have to depend on ads to drive their business. And the ads are getting more and more and more expensive. Why? The world population doesn't go up. So companies have to show their shareholders more revenue. So they keep jumping up the rates, so it keeps becoming more and more and more expensive. And the other challenge with ads is, it's about trust, right? We know it's an ad, so we don't trust it. Because we don't trust it, we tend to second guess ourselves as customers anytime we click on an ad. So the first thing that we don't like, we leave the website, or first thing we don't like in the phone call, we decide not to go ahead with that doctor. So your bar gets really, really high. So for those reasons, I think dominating search is really important organically without ads. And then I do think that marketing strategy meeting is a good place to start. Once again, the link is businessofesthetics.org/MSM.
Appreciate that, Naren. That was a powerful conversation with Naren Arulrajah on the do's and don'ts in the age of AI search. So, after this episode, go ahead, Google yourself for the treatments that you're offering and in a way that a normal person would, right? And see if you're showing up in the AI overviews or, even better. If not, and you want some help answering that question, like Naren just mentioned, go ahead and book a marketing strategy meeting with Naren's team. It's a 60-minute call. You will get a complete 6-month roadmap on what are the best steps you can take to ensure growth in 2026. The link is businessofesthetics.org/MSM. And with that being said, I'm Don Adeesha. This has been the Business of Aesthetics podcast. Thanks for listening. Keep on leading.